Welcome to Beyond Vows Veils, your luxury wedding experience. Our podcast, I feel, is a treasure trove of inspiration and insight for newly engaged couples. Join us as we have captivating stories, expert insight, and real wedding experiences that you can listen and learn from. Hi everyone, I'm Brittany and welcome back to another episode of Beyond Vows Veils. Today we are so fortunate to have the one and only Noor Zufari here, and we are just pumped to dive into that creative brain of yours.
It's ready to.
Yes. So I've known Noor, actually I don't know how long I've known you.
Okay, so I've lived in Tampa 11 years, so at least 12 or 13 years.
A long time.
Yeah.
Wow. You were at my wedding.
I was. I still remember your dance. I think of it every time I hear the
really?
song. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I don't remember it.
You don't remember the dance or the song?
I remember the song. I remember the song. Oh my God, I hope I remember the song, but I don't remember the dance. It's not like, cue and like it comes on and I like remember all this
You
stuff.
guys nailed it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Dance lessons, everyone. Okay, so I really wanted to, have you come here because I've always admired your work, and I've really always admired that you don't take yourself too seriously. And we were kind of chatting about this earlier before we obviously started filming, is that I really do admire the fact that you always take projects that make sense for you, as opposed to just sort of like taking on a lot of different, design jobs. So I guess one of the first questions I want to ask you is, what is your process like? Because recently you and I talked about even potential collaborations with some future clients of mine, and you were so open book and just sent me like, hey, here's like mood boards that I've sent in. Here's kind of how it came to actualization. And I was like so impressed by that process and really kind of seeing like it's so out of the box and different. And you can tell it's definitely what that couple wanted. So how does that start? What does that look like for you?
So one of the reasons why I named my company without the word events in it is because I've learned throughout our careers, because we have pretty simultaneous timelines, that when I try to say this is the thing that I want, I immediately feel like almost a sense of panic of like, no, I want to try everything. I don't want to do the same thing twice. If one day events are not my happy place, like this gives me an open-ended opportunity. So that's sort of my process too. Like when it comes to taking in clients and seeing things, like if you look for my marketing, you won't find any because there isn't any. I just really try to work hard and do good work and let it come back to me, and align myself with good people. And as we all have seen, if you're in the event industry, that doesn't always work out perfectly. Right. There seems to Mercury's in the microwave like this whole year. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yes.
But my design process, once the client and I have both decided we're the fit, and like the client could be anybody. It could be another planner. It could be the individual. It could be a corporation, a nonprofit. Really, I think because my background is in logistics and production, that's almost one of my first thoughts before I even start to think about the pretty. So do they have a venue selected? What is the venue? What is it about the venue that the client wants to solve? Right. Recently I had a wedding where the client really wanted an overseas wedding, but it just was not logistically possible for their family. They explored so many different venue options. They wanted a tent. They ended up in a ballroom, and they hated the fact that they were in a ballroom. Yeah. And the most beautiful ballroom is still a ballroom. Right. So the first part of the process was, okay, so what is it about this ballroom that feels suffocating? The ceiling height, the walls, the existing decor. Okay, so we drape, we carpet, we go from there. So like through that process, some people have a strong opinion about the individual items, and in some cases they're like, here's the end goal, get me there. Right. And they kind of reel back from the tiny minutia, and that particular client was like, no, I want to know the feet on the chair.
Oh, wow.
And at first I was like, oh, this isn't going to be very fun for me. And then by the end I was like, I'm amused. This is like a psychology study. Like, how do you feel about this chair? Meanwhile, like,
Right.
there's like such bigger aspects to the design that they're like, we trust you. And I was like, oh, but the chair was faulty. So that's kind of the process, honestly. Like, just try to figure out the big solutions. And then it's almost like the pretty's easy. I always ask people, I try not to get event pictures from people.
Right.
I never want them to think this is the event that I want to recreate, because that event was not for you. It was not the right time. It was not the right place. These are not you. Aside from the intellectual property, you never want to be taking someone else's work. So I really try to get them to like a favorite piece of jewelry, an interior design picture they like, even if that's not actually their home. Which, let me just say on the record, I know these are not pictures of people's homes, because I've asked out of curiosity, like, okay, here's your inspiration Pinterest.
Yeah.
Can I see a picture of your home?
Right.
We're all living in dreams.
Right.
No matter the level of wealth. I'm not knocking it, because that's very much me too, but it's also funny for me. So that's kind of the direction. And then, so we put together an inspiration board. We make sure we're all speaking the same language. And then I deliver every aspect of the event within reason of the budget. I'm always going to try and push it a little bit.
Right, of course.
It's in my nature.
Right.
But that's kind of the idea of like, they should hypothetically be able to walk into their event and be like, yes, this is exactly what we talked about.
This is totally me. You know, it's so interesting because I had recently, when you talk about, you know, I don't know, home decor and things like that, I recently had a decorator reach out to our office and say, hey, can you tell me like where the bride and groom shop for their home decor? And I'm like, why the hell do you need to know this? Like, I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
But like, you know, I'm Serena and Lily, by the way, if you can't tell, coastal modern. But I think it really did, at the end, it does make sense. But I guess I'm curious because I know when we're in my office and I'm talking to a new client, and I always ask for inspo pictures. So what do you think, how do you sort of pull from them, like creating that look without any sort of base work to start from? Because I know all my clients, they're like, they have that Pinterest board. It's been like 2 years in the making, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how does that translate? Because I feel like, you know, when you go in a space, and budget's obviously a big thing, and I appreciate you bringing that up. A lot of times, especially for, you know, my clientele who's hosting multiple days and you know, you're trying to essentially stretch the dollar, you know, I guess what advice do you have for, I won't say in the South we call it champagne taste on a beer budget, but I guess I'll say more elevated taste on a more modest budget. Like, how do you navigate that?
So I think the first part of the question is, how do you pull from their inspiration to actually translate it to real items? And that's, I kind of compared it the other day for someone, you know, when you're going to your hairstylist and they ask you to bring pictures of what you want, and you'll bring them 9 pictures and the stylist looks at you like you've taken something hallucinogenic, because they're like, first of all, you don't even have that hair type.
Right.
Second of all, these are 9 different hairstyles.
Right.
What do you like about this?
Right.
And that's what I try to ask. If it's a picture of another event, what is it about this event that you like? Is it the colors? Is it the ambiance? Please don't say the colors, because 99% of pictures are filtered.
Right. And you'll change your colors at least 100 times before the actual event date. Yeah.
You know, more often than not, those Pinterests are all over the place. And it's not a fault. I wouldn't expect people to know exactly how to select their images. Most people have not gotten married before the first time. I just heard what I said and it made perfect sense. But there's something in each of those images.
Right.
But like, as an event professional, whether you're in design or not, you can look at it and be like, wow, that's very bohemian and that's very preppy. How are these in the same board? But there's something out of both of them.
Right.
I like that this feels effortless. I like the tones of this, you know? So those are the questions I like to ask. And then, so one of the biggest aspects of my design philosophy in general for events is, what are your priorities? Like, as a newly engaged couple, as you're talking about the celebration, whatever it may look like, what is the intention? We know why you're getting married. That's the beautiful part. But what is the intention behind the celebration and the wedding?
Right.
Is it to have all of your loved ones in one room? Is it to have a day where, like, it's all about your relationship and all about the pride? or brides or grooms.
Right.
But really, like, how often in our lives are we able to say, like, I want all of my favorite people in a room celebrating all of the aspects of my life? Like, we all deserve that.
Right.
So what is the intention there? Is it to have this incredible experience where if you're going to invest in this celebration, you want the best food, you want the best music,
Right.
and you want this once in a lifetime experience?
Right.
So based upon that, I always say, like, pick your top 3 priorities. You can make it 4 or 5 if you really need to, and let the other stuff go. I'm not saying don't care,
Right.
but don't agonize. Don't let it stress you out.
Right.
I always try to put in every budget a contingency because, like, those are the things that stress people out. The last minute,
Right.
suddenly we need a line of drape somewhere. The band realizes that they need to go to space, like, whatever
We
it
need a
is.
generator. Now
yeah.
we need to pop a generator in there. Or I don't know what it is. I feel like power just follows me. Like, I feel like that's just
I
the
think it's a
power.
Florida thing.
The power conversation, the tenting conversation, the if it rains conversation. I just feel like sometimes like doomsday conversations is just not very fun. But
Until somebody invents, like, a true event insurance, I'm not talking about, like, if your
oh my God,
building
event
falls down.
insurance. Oh,
But, like,
we've really researched that.
you know,
Done a lot of research.
but, like, oh, we suddenly have to move our event. We don't have this extra $20,000. Aha, that's why we've been paying $100 a month. in
Right.
event insurance. That kind of insurance.
Right.
It probably wouldn't make anybody any money, so it'll never happen.
Right. Right.
So I always like to have a contingency fund so that if you're stressed at the end of it, it's more about, like, oh, I've never had a day about me, or,
Right. Right.
is
100%.
grandma going to be okay getting down the aisle? Like,
Sure.
those are things I can't, not in my control, but I can at least say, hey, we've not touched your contingency fund, that thing that you wanted but couldn't afford earlier. We're a week out, we can use it. Yeah.
I love that. I've actually never thought to have a contingency fund. I just let my clients know that the cushion sort of comes from when we do budget development. Like, if they're expecting 300 people, we'll just budget for 350.
Right.
And then we kind of just say, oh, like, not as many people ended up coming.
Surprise.
Surprise, we have this extra fund. But that's really fun. I love that you actually have something specifically set aside for because, there's a lot of temptation.
Right.
Temptation.
And I do think that it also helps a little bit with trust, right? Like, when they see that, like, oh, she meant contingency fund, because when we're like, oh, well, there's a $5,000 here we can put towards floral, you're
Right.
like,
Right.
that could bite you in the behind.
Right.
I don't know how censored this is supposed to be, so I said behind. So, but I think there's also, I think that's what trips up a lot of couples. Like, here, oh, there's all these things that we want and we can't have them, therefore we're not having the celebration that we want. That is bogus,
Right.
completely bogus.
Right.
Because really, when you think about, like, as a human being, what your senses can take in, it's not all the things that you think,
Yeah,
you're just
I know.
obsessing about it
What
for
am
the
I
first time.
smelling when I walk in the room? I'm like, hopefully just clean air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, we obviously want to
Not the cigarette smoker.
We're all about it creating an experience, but I know you mentioned earlier about obviously you have to work with other vendors and we have to work with professionals to make it happen. I do want to ask you, because I'm genuinely curious myself too. Being someone who's been mostly in the planning and logistics space and working with some really amazing, talented, professionals out there for design and production, sometimes it's taking like a small village to create a look. And I want to be mindful with my language. But
trying to guess
in
what you're
our
thinking.
industry, there's not a lot of requirements to promote your level of expertise and credentials.
Nice way to say it, okay?
And I think that what I'm trying to get at is couples who either are not working with a planner, or maybe it's a planner that's working, I don't know, in a different location or not as familiar with the local talents. How do you avoid choosing the wrong fit? Because I also feel that as gung-ho as people in our industry can be, I think sometimes design crews or wake up that day want to be a designer sometimes can, take on a little bit more than maybe otherwise anticipated, and then ultimately kind of puts the client in a difficult position later on. What's your plan of attack? Because, obviously you're having to communicate that look and make sure that that look authentically just kind of carries through. How does that happen? How does that magical moment happen?
Such a
Because it's a
mystical
lot.
question, because you're right, and really, truly, in 2023, I have experienced professionally things that like no risk management class ever even fathomed for us. Like, I can tell you where fire extinguishers are supposed to be, but I can't tell you like what to do when the hotel changes staff 95 times and nobody responds for 3 months.
Yes.
Like, there's no handbook there.
Right.
I do think that a lot more people fight their instincts than they realize. If it doesn't feel right, why are you doing it?
Right.
If you're in a position where you're able to hire a planner, don't hire somebody you don't innately trust. Like, it sounds basic, but it's really not. And I've heard so many people from both sides of it, in this year in particular, like, they came highly recommended, but there just wasn't something about us. Like, it's a personal celebration. If this is not a person that aligns with your beliefs, that if this is a person that does not align with your aesthetic, if this is not a person that aligns with the way that you communicate,
Right.
like, walk the other way.
Right.
There's someone for everyone in this industry.
100%.
If you're in a position where you are not able to hire either a full planner or a planner at all, it's hard because even reviews aren't so much a thing. I would really just try to look at their body of work. Is there consistency? If it's, for instance, let's say it's a rental company, are you able to come in and see their inventory? That's probably very telling, seeing their space. Not everyone has a showroom, but if you're making a large investment in proportion to your abilities, financial abilities, I think it's fair to say, could I please just come meet you in person?
Right.
And ease my anxieties.
Right.
And if it doesn't feel right, walk away.
Right. I think communication, like you mentioned, for me is always number one.
Yes.
If I inquire with your office and I don't hear back for like 14 business days, that's good for you that you're that busy. Like, whoa, that's awesome. I love that. But I'm not going to harass you for information because if I'm not even booked with you yet and I'm having a hard time getting in touch with you, I think that's the first sign that there's some disorganization internally. And then the second layering to that is like, let's say that you do go through finally getting a proposal meeting and you're going through everything, and then I'm really big on integrity. So for me, just do what you say you're going to do. If you say that it's going to take you 4 months to get us a turned around key, a turnkey proposal, then it takes 4 months. But I just feel like sometimes, again, with full intention to hold true to integrity, I think there's a lot of like missed milestones, and the challenge then becomes now you sort of are losing time to then otherwise vet other professionals. Do you feel like, Noor, like, do most couples when they come to you, are they pretty much just like they know you through the grapevine, or are they kind of just finding you one off? Because you have a lot of experience, and I think that is tremendous that you have both the talent to literally visualize and create something so new, but you also have the ability to like get everybody in line, like shape up or ship out, And I think that's a really big skill because I get it, right? Like we manage professionals all the time coming in, hold to your contract, do what you say you're going to do. Are you loading it at this time? Make sure you're on schedule. Like there's a lot of pressure there. And I guess what I'm getting at is, do most of your clients come to you and they know that they're going to want to work with you, or would you advise couples to talk to more than one decorator? Because back to communication too, I'm a big believer in communication and in personal relationship, because if you have to deal with me for a year and you don't like me, that would really, for lack of a better way of putting it, that would really suck. You definitely don't want to work with any vendor.
For both of you.
For both of us, yeah. You don't want to work with any vendor that you don't vibe with and you don't trust and you don't have like a good rapport with, because you're talking pretty frequently and it's like, it's like a committed relationship. It's a second union.
It really is.
So I don't know, like, how does that look like usually for you with new clients?
People are finding me through other event professionals, and or previous lives of mine in the industry.
Right.
So this is a major fault of my own. There's a major gap in like what I put out there and everything. Our industry is so reliant on Instagram. Our industry is very reliant on our website appearing a certain way, Pinterest, etc. And I've rested on my laurels a little too long on all of it. But it's hard for me because it's hard for me to get out of my head, I should say, because I do such a range of events that I'm like, well, I don't want to I don't want to pigeonhole myself. So the short answer is other event professionals and or that's a previous client has referred me, which is the dream space to be in.
It's amazing.
There's 75%
And honestly, you're
qualified.
very modest, because when you are sending me, like, even just so that I could better understand when I'm talking to my clients about your process for design, when you were sending me, like, even just like some of your sample diagrams and mood boards, and then like kind of getting to see the final visuals, I was just like, this is so cool. This is like so different, and it's fresh and it's new. And I think that's not showcasing that, because you don't on your like social media
It makes me
outlets.
so uncomfortable.
It makes me also feel very like so fortunate to like have a connection like you in my back pocket, because if I know that there's a couple that wants to do something different and wants to just kind of create a guest experience that's just not the same old, like, you're the girl.
Yeah.
You're the one.
That's my dream. Yeah, I find it very uncomfortable to be like, because, okay, the truth is that if you ask most people, again, in our industry, as I'm standing and looking at a beautiful event that I've just bled for, all I can see are the things I did wrong or should have done differently. So it's very hard for me to be like, look at this picture of this event, but don't look at that corner. I wish I could Photoshop it away, but I don't want to Photoshop it because that's fake. And, you know, I'm neurotic is what I'm saying. I'm a low-key neurotic.
We're all like that. Trust me. Even if like I feel like the timeline went perfect, I was like, but we were 10 minutes delayed getting them inside the room.
But that lady bumped her leg on that chair. I should have known she was going to bump her leg on that chair.
But that's what
and
makes
the
us
planner's
better.
like, why are you still in the room? Get out.
You're in my shot.
Grandma. Like, yeah, I'm always worried about a grandma.
Do you do with your team? I'm just curious because we do this, but I was curious from like a design perspective. Do you do like post event recaps?
Postmortems? Yes.
What went really well? What went bad? What can we never do again?
Yes, I try to. And I tell my team, like, I would like to think that if you ask my team without me present, with an NDA signed, that they would tell you, please feel free. Before I hire someone, I have them talk to whoever else is on the team without me present, and everyone knows, like, I want them to know what they're walking into and what they're getting with me and what's going to be expected of them.
Right.
I can tell you what I expect, but it's different to hear from somebody who's in it. I would much, much, much rather hear constructive feedback than a compliment. Compliments are nice, especially with like weddings. You hope that this might be the last time you work with that couple for a wedding. It could be for any number of reasons, but I would always want to be asked back for like legacy events and, you know, other life events.
Right.
People shy away from giving feedback because they're like, 99.9% of this was wonderful. Why am I going to tell you about the 0.1%? And I'm like, because how am I supposed to be great for the next couple, you know?
Right.
So all of that being said, like, I feel there's so much, this kind of was what was playing through my head when you're asking about how do you vet vendors. There's so much smoke and mirror in our industry.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said, I can fall asleep right now, wake up and say, I'm a photographer. And I can pick up an iPhone, I can pick up a camera, and I can be a photographer. Right. And I can charge $75,000, and there's a lunatic on this planet that might pay it. And I choose not to, so you're welcome. Yes. But there's no barrier to entry. There's no Better Business Bureau.
Right.
There's no ethics council. And there's nobody like showing you like, hey, here's why this Pinterest image is so fake, especially right now with AI. Like when I see a Pinterest image that looks cool and I see it's written like what's below it is like in a Russian language or, you know, something. And I'm like, oh, it's probably AI.
Has anyone stolen your stuff yet? I had someone randomly like
It's like a mark of having
completely
made
like
it.
take our like almost like screenshot our logo so it was like blurry.
Nice.
They created like this whole Instagram account and they
Excellent.
like started like doing that. I was like, wow, like that's really creative.
Yeah.
It's really creative.
Thank you. I'm very flattered.
But you're so right. There isn't any sort of code, if you will. And I think that's what is so great about our industry because it keeps it very fluid and fun. And like it does allow people who are in the creative space to like go out and create and do something really impactful in our hospitality industry.
And there's this requirement for content. And so if you're looking at a beautiful styled shoot, there is a reason and a wonderful reason for styled shoots. You cut your teeth with them.
Yes.
You show your capabilities, you show your aesthetic, all of it. Does it mean that this table in the middle of the wild field with wild grazing horses around it is practical for your event? No. Does it mean that your event will look like that? Absolutely not.
You know what's so funny is I recently saw this picture and I won't give any specifics other than they had like these massive florals on either side of this long estate table and you could tell like this was a high budget wedding. But I remember looking at this picture and I go, if I'm that person sitting in the middle of this estate table, how do I get to the bathroom?
Yep.
Like how, like physically,
Every time I
how
see
am I
flowers
supposed to
dripping
like
off the table,
scurch back?
all I think about are the children that have just obliterated it.
Oh my God.
Everywhere.
The children.
The
you guys.
children.
It's a love
and adult
relationship. Children at weddings. I have a 6-year-old, so just like I'm not hating on children.
I love kids.
But I'm being serious. It really is one of those things that you want to make sure that something also looks like logistically sound
the new
and
trend with
understand spacing. Because you obviously did do like, what was it? It was an internship or you had like an actual job with when you did like furnishing rentals and things like that.
Yeah,
so
my
you
first job.
understand space planning really well, which is a skill. And if you, for anyone out there, especially for couples, space planning is very, very important. So even if you're not working with a planner, contact your venue and have them put a sample diagram together for you. I don't care if it's a sea of rounds. Before you contract this space, just make sure you guys can physically fit like a dance floor and your bar, because otherwise there's a little bit of displacement. But that's sort of where I was getting at with that like funny story, because it was this beautifully decorated event, but logistically it almost looked impossible for someone, unless you're like going through the bushes to like go to the bathroom.
They came to me with design like halfway there, and I was like, have you ever attended an event in this space? Because it's a very narrow, long shoebox. Like there's no forgiveness in this space. And they were like, no, I mean, I've like walked by things. And I was like, okay, here's the reality. While it fits two-dimensionally, there's a point to this. While it fits two-dimensionally, I'm going to tell you, this table is going to have to literally leapfrog off of the other table if they're going to need to use the restroom for the 4-hour reception. And they will, because you have a nice luge.
Right.
So,
In an open
luge.
bar.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, whether you have a planner or not, even if you have a floral team that is going to make a diagram, show it to the venue. Because the venue can tell you, like, this looks lovely, but that table is right where all of the servers are going to have to come in and out. And this corner is where we typically drop dirty plates. You're not going to want to put your boss at that table. Hey, this is not physically possible. Hey, there's not enough power on the wall for the band there, etc. A lot of people don't, and it's not a common thing, but I realized the other day, I was like, why don't we?
Right.
Especially like a lot of, for instance, there's a couple of platforms that will not be named that most venues rely on for diagrams that have only tested my life. This year, like walking into the space and you start dropping these tables that have fit with 10-foot gaps in between them, and suddenly you're walking in there like, oh my God, people are gonna have to literally like.
Are you old school with your measurements?
straddle.
Like, do you like have you had enough of those
had to go back
experiences
to
where
it.
you're like, I don't trust it?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, go with your walking measuring stick.
Yes.
Like,
Literally.
yeah.
Literally, and like I'll have people like, oh, I'll come with you to the venue, and I'm like, no, because you're gonna want to talk to me while I'm counting and measuring.
Right.
And it's
I
not
don't
going to
want
be
you
fun
there.
for me.
Right.
And Google Earth sorry Google, it's not always accurate or it's not
What?
proportional. I know. I have an event that's literally oh my God, we're like Plains Land.
Oh, like
It's
an
not
airport
It's
hangar.
not an airport. It's
Like a landing
yeah, it's
area?
they can park their planes there.
Okay,
It's over on
sure,
the Space Coast.
sure.
Space Coast Executive Jet Center.
Okay,
And
great.
it is a
Wow.
humongous pad of concrete.
Okay.
Humongous.
Okay.
All I need are rectangular measurements.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go and walk it, which is basically like football field lengths around
Right,
this.
right.
Google Earth lied to me. I had more space than it said.
So for those of you that know about this feature, Google Maps, you can go to the satellite view and then you can click on like
2 points.
2 points and you're able to measure the distance. And I've absolutely used that in the past. So that's so crazy that it would be like
Use it as a generality, not as like,
actual
yeah, this'll fit.
floor plan. Okay, that's actually very good advice.
Yeah. And also, it's not always up to date with where trees are. That can ruin your day.
Trees.
And of course, you can't take into account like undulations in the land.
Yeah.
Undulations.
Undulations. Yes. And I was going to ask you, back to like just, you have to make sure you like the person that you're working with.
Yes.
Obviously you've had like years of experience. We all have fun stories. Anybody in the hospitality industry has fun stories. And I won't ever ask you to tell me one of those fun stories because I know they're in the vault.
There's some good ones.
But I guess like, connecting with your couples, like how often are you talking to them? Because, obviously you're attending site visits solo if you need to for your own production measurements. But like, how often are you connecting with them? And like, maybe you can just share like some memorable experiences that you've had with your couples. Because I think it really is very important for, again, going back to that relationship. Like, I know that there's some couples that I've worked with 10 years ago, and I literally see that they have like 3 kids now, and it's super fun. Like, I know that you're very similar, and we do align on this, that we're not in this industry to just like do like a huge quality or quantity, of functions. I don't want to take on like a wedding factory where it's like, okay,
It
you're
will
here, and
bother
you're here.
me if I don't remember a couple's name like from 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like especially with the couples that I work with the South Asian community, like I'm running into my couples all the time at functions. And so like you have to remember.
Really have to be on
better
point.
remember flashcard session. But I am serious, like, how do you like how often are you connecting with and what are some memorable moments you've had and
Sure. So it's become interesting. So in my career, I've been the planner and now on the design and production side, I see the couple a lot less, and that is one of the things I don't enjoy as much. Like, this sounds weird to other people, but like I love hanging out with groomsmen on a wedding day.
Oh my
Like
God.
they're
Do you start the
sorry,
groomsmen
they're better than the
text?
bridesmaids.
the groomsmen text, I
Are
swear.
the funniest places
They are
you can live.
hilarious.
And I have found myself in the most ridiculous situations. And, like, I mean, it's happened twice where I walked into a room and one of the groomsmen is somebody that I'd matched with on an app, like, years before. Like, nothing, like, too directly awkward. And, like, I might meet their wife later,
Oh
like.
my God, so funny.
But, like, one time it dawned on me why his face looked familiar as I'm pinning his boutonniere, and I like stabbed myself in the finger, and I was like, "Carry on, we're fine." It's like,
I'm dead.
I know. Or like, there's one where the groomsmen like swung open the door that they're getting ready in, and like steam rolls out, and it's just a bunch of
Yes.
men in towels. I'm like,
Yes.
you're at a Ritz. What are you doing?
Right.
Like, what is
We
happening
have
here?
them where they literally will get on a group text and, we start the group text, so we can't like escape the group text. But
Why would
it'll
you
be
want
like
to?
literally, I have this one group and they probably, if they ever listen to this, they know who they are. But it was like 6 years ago this wedding went down.
Yeah.
And it'll be like every year on the anniversary of this wedding date, they'll start like a thread or
That's
like
my
respond
dream.
in that group text, and they'll just be like, they'll copy and paste a message that we sent them. So it'll be like, we need you downstairs in the lobby at approximately 10 a.m., like dressed and
incredible.
ready. And they'll all laugh. And it's just
I
like,
love it.
I love groomsmen.
I
They're
like,
hilarious.
there's always a diva one Like, there's always one who's like, my cufflink feels wrong. Look at it. You know, like.
Or that they're late. It's like, is it your wedding?
And then there's one that'll show up and like their pants are it's just a pile of fabric in your hands. They're like, somebody needs to make these pants. Like,
True story. I one time had a groomsman that lost his pants.
yes, that happens all the time.
And we borrowed the pants of the live sitar player.
What is
The live sitar player literally had like these white linen pants on. They were perfect. And so we walked up to him and I was just like, I'm really sorry.
Can
Like,
I put a
can we
tablecloth
borrow
on
your
legs? Make your pants.
And the groomsman gave like a pair of sweatpants to wear. I swear to God, this is.
I thought you were like, and he just appropriately placed the sitar.
No, swear to God, he's playing processional music. And like guests are getting seated, and we're lighting the groomsman up. And he's like, "I'm so sorry, I forgot my pants." Like, I
And
didn't.
the
get
hotel
right-"
comes running up, and they're like, "The sitar player is so unprofessional. He's wearing sweatpants." You're like, "He saved our life."
One of my coordinators tapped me on the shoulders. They're like, "The sitar player." He's got some pants. And I'm like, talk about the most awkward conversation of my life.
This is why I love groomsmen. They forgot
Yeah.
underwear. They forget
Yes.
socks. They.
Yes. Everything.
Here's.
I'm
this
so
is such
happy.
a
I'm so
stupid
happy if they have a
story.
girlfriend because the girlfriend will absolutely make sure that they're like in.
I don't know, because that girlfriend can also be the demise.
Oh, yeah,
It's always somebody's, sorry, bitchy new girlfriend
Yeah.
that nobody likes and is not invited to sit at the table, that calls and is like, my head is on fire, somebody needs to do something about it. And then they walk in and the most inappropriate dress for the occasion, and you're like,
God.
uh-huh, I get
Yeah.
it. Don't even, I know
It's
who
fine.
you are, you're
It's
at table
fine.
9. Like,
fine.
it's, yeah.
We'll just Photoshop you in the group picture that you couldn't make it to.
I was freelancing on a wedding that was like outside of
Mm-hmm.
a major city, a good distance
Yeah.
in Colorado. So
Yeah.
you
Okay.
like you understand
Yeah.
the obstacles in place. And the groomsmen that had bought all of the other groomsmen cufflinks as a gift didn't bring them,
Okay.
which would have been fine. But they all had custom tuxes and. They were all going to have
Yeah.
floppy sleeves if they
right.
didn't have cufflinks.
Right.
So I go into town, and so it's about a 45-minute drive, and I look everywhere.
Like literally, you guys, this is what I mean by hiring the right people. Noor actually cared enough to get into like. I'm sorry.
Oh, I offered
That's next
like
level.
I offered to like do like a safety pin bejeweled situation, and I was met with horror. So.
How dare you?
Yeah. So I drive into town, and I end up finding this store that specifically outfits for Mexican quinceañeras, specifically Mexican.
Wow, okay.
Because I walked in, and it was the most Mexican pride-filled place I've ever been. It was actually incredible.
Love
in
it.
this small town in Colorado.
Love it.
God bless America. And they had cufflinks. I'm not saying that they were all the same. Some of them might have been junior. Some of them might have been kids.
Right.
But I get cufflinks. So I come back so proud of myself. Oh, I also had to stop at multiple places to try and find more black socks.
Oh, yeah, of
because
course.
they
Yeah, absolutely.
always
Yeah.
Or I thought that these were the kind that you don't wear socks.
Actually, I thought that you would just have this in your emergency kit. I'm surprised that you don't.
We had a bride that just asked, "You'll have a toothbrush for me, right?" And I was like, "You don't own a toothbrush?" Like, this was like 3 weeks before the wedding. I was like, "May God help you to afford a toothbrush."
Couples,
between now
your
and then."
planner will absolutely have an emergency kit, but like your basic socks and
Yeah.
toothbrushes.
Just
we
assume
won't
that
have
you
on
should
hand.
select your own underpants. Just assume.
We
it.
won't have those.
Yeah.
We got lucky with the sitar player.
Right.
Right.
So I get back, and as I'm thinking, like, I'm going to have a hero's welcome. Like, I'm really ready for this moment.
Oh my God, I wish I was there.
And, like, this is, like, such an interesting group. Like, this one is, like, a doctor of, I don't know what neuroscience, and this one's invented a robot that, like, helps other robots. And,
They're
like,
like crazy intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm really, like, oh, this
Yeah,
is
you're
gonna
like,
get me, like,
this
a
is-
really good favor in the future.
Right.
The original groomsman that was supposed to give it to everybody as gifts pulls out an Hermes bag and has Hermes cufflinks. And he said, "Oh no, I've had them the whole time." I was like, "I know I said I like hanging out with the groomsmen. Thank you for humbling me." Like, and
You
I
can't trump
and
that.
nobody wore my Mexican cufflinks. I know. And I think about it a lot. I still have them.
Do you still have them?
I do.
Bring them with you.
I do still have
One
them.
day, you'll get that hero's
One day.
reward. You'll get that badge.
And as I loop those sleeves, they're going to hear my story of strife.
Yes. Oh my God, that is hilarious.
Speaking of event professionals being incredible, so I was recently at a conference overseas in Paris, and we were heading to the gala, and I had forgotten the wine key for my friends to enjoy some rosé on their drive, as one does in France.
Why would you not?
And we looked around at one point, and we were like, we are event professionals. We are a bus full of Swiss Army knives. Like, one of us can get the cork out of this rosé.
Yeah.
We couldn't. And so
Do you just push it in at that point and call it a day?
it was getting really dark
Yeah.
for people. They were really considering it, but they couldn't. I mean, there were like
nice
Louboutins hammering.
Yeah.
It got dark.
Yeah.
And I don't even drink rosé. Anyway, I was just trying to
Right.
it was my fault. I'd
Right.
forgotten the wine key.
Right.
So one of the other event professionals who does incredible work, Josh, who owns Birch Event Design, we looked at him and we're like, if anybody can bail us out of this situation, it's you, Josh.
Right. You got
And
this.
so everybody started pressuring him, and he makes a phone call, and I thought he was like kind of irritated by us, which would have been entirely justified,
Right.
/ shutting us out.
Right.
This man made 2 calls on WhatsApp, turned on his live location. He told me the whole
Yeah.
situation afterwards. And with less than 20 minutes, a wonderful man named Avi was like pulled off to the side of the highway. He got ahead of us on the highway,
my God,
pulled
for a
into
wine
the
key.
shoulder,
For a wine
and was
key.
standing in the shoulder of a busy French highway, like with this Monoprix, like brand new wine key standing in his hand. And we didn't even pull the bus out of traffic. We just stayed in traffic, and Avi jumped on and wished us well in life. And I was like, it's all on video. We cheered.
This is the hospitality industry. This is literally, we just make things happen.
And when we all looked at Josh, like, are you in the Illuminati? Like, what just happened? He was like, no, I have a guy in every city. And I was like, I have a new goal in life.
I have a new, oh my God, I have a new goal
I have a
in
new
life.
goal in life.
A guy in every city.
Yeah,
That guy.
it sounds weird when we
Or
say it,
girl.
but yes. A person that is resourceful in every city.
Individual for business support.
This is why I'm single. No,
my
but
God.
honestly, and then afterwards, as I thought about it, I was like, these are the unsung heroes of our industry.
Yeah.
Like, wine key substituted with anything. Like,
100%.
we have MacGyvered all of the things
Yes.
at some point in our life.
Yes.
I had a groom that was having a full freak out because he forgot his Xanax. And he is not Muslim. I am. And I read him Muslim prayers and like rocked him for a little bit. And he was like, that was better than Xanax. And I was like, I want that on my tombstone. Like,
Yeah, and I also want a 5-star review. I want that 5-star. Oh my gosh.
these are the things. But on the design side, there's also like nutty things that happen
Yeah.
too. My original point before we went down the spiral was that,
These are definitely memorable moments.
oh yeah.
Cherished events.
And like from now on, we like, I obviously do not carry Xanax for my clients, but like I'll try to keep things that might relax them.
Right. Or remind them.
Yes.
Hey, if you're
Reliant on medication,
please bring it.
let's have some backups.
Right.
Or like teach me your soothing techniques.
Right. Right.
If you like to be rocked like a baby, that's an option.
Right.
So
A whole list.
I don't see the client as much anymore.
Yeah.
Which makes me very sad.
That would make me sad too, because I don't think I've ever not had my weekly touch bases.
Yes.
And now it's all Zoom.
Yeah.
Now I'm like always. And I'm like, sorry guys, I'm like in my sweatpants today.
I didn't realize the difference in all of that until Adrienne from my team was pregnant. And we would go through the entire planning process, and then we'd show up to execute the event. They're like, were you pregnant the whole time? We're like, yes. Like,
Yeah, I was.
That's how
with
it
child.
goes.
Right. It's 9 months.
It's been going for at
long
least
time.
7 months. But the one of the weddings that I did recently, I didn't see the couple at all until the end of the night. And at that point, you can't expect anybody to like know their own name.
They're having a
whether-
good time.
and they're
like,
exhausted.
They're just like, yeah, it was great.
like their hair hurts.
Right,
You know, like
right.
So I just was like hoping to make eye contact and either get like flipped off or a thumbs up. Like just
Right.
give me just
One or
like
the
a
other.
basic,
Just an acknowledgement.
yeah, like
Right.
have you hated everything all
Right.
day, or like will you work with me again?
Right. Right.
I got a pat on the head, a literal pat on the head for anybody
Adorable.
concerned for me.
I love it.
But it really like it's not about the validation, it's about making sure that like are you having the experience that we worked so hard on.
I love that.
Part I've kind of
I love that.
I kind of miss that. But usually I'll text the planner and be like, "Is everybody okay?" And really I'm asking like,
Right.
are they happy?
Are they happy with me?
Yeah.
What about me?
Like I don't want profuse compliments. Just be like thumbs up, whatever it is. But yeah, like some of the couples, like for
Yeah.
sure. Like I'm on their Christmas card list.
I
Like
love it.
when I'm in their city, we meet up. It's really cool.
It's so cool. And I think that those relationships are totally what it's all about. And, I definitely feel so connected from some of those stories because we all have them.
Yep.
And I think that's so awesome that you shared some of those.
I think I've gotten very lucky throughout my career. It's 14 years. This year, I've had the most difficult clients, and I don't genuinely, as I'm about to complain about them, I genuinely get it. The world is in so much angst and anxiety, and like we just had this like really transformative experience. By that one C word, that was a real C word. I I understand it for a lot of people, and we all know that like somebody that's being like extra hateful is probably going through something like really
Right.
horrific in their
Right.
life. That being said, if you don't like me as a person, I can't sleep at night. So
I'm a people pleaser. It was what is that
Yes.
childhood memories or whatever it is. It's like
Yes.
that's my thing.
I'm the youngest of 4 children.
Yeah.
I am indoctrinated that if you don't like me, it's going to ruin everything. Like
You must.
and then I live in an industry that requires constant validation. So help me help you. But it's been very difficult this year.
Yeah.
And like the toughest clients we've had to work the hardest for coincidentally and non-coincidentally, and they're the ones who will never know like what we all went through to
Right.
make sure that they
Right.
didn't like. And I would care as much for any client, especially the lovely ones, and every vendor will tell you that like if you're lovely, everybody wants to go the extra 10 miles for you. And also, when you're a little hateful, we're like, I can't get sued. This is not another
Yeah, I
thing
feel
I
like
can
I was gonna
add to
say,
my
I was gonna say,
plate.
even if you're not as poised in how you approach with your vendors,
Yes.
you almost like want to really work because you're like, oh, I don't want to upset anybody, because I definitely, and I feel like for me, like, you go back to like wanting to create that ultimate experience. Like for me, I'm just like, I just want them to be present.
Yes.
I hope that we can effectively create a timeline that can allow you to just not be like, hey, did you check on that? Hey, is that done? Hey,
If
is
they
it
black out,
just
they can
like-
come back.
right? It's just like, I always tell all my clients, I say 2 weeks prior, you got to be done.
Yeah.
You got to be out of planning mode. If we're still in planning mode, sometimes things happen, but like rest assured, like the day of the event, you got to like pass over that trust at some point. But it's tough to do that. And I
is.
think that definitely going back to what we said before, which I think is hopefully a big takeaway for everybody, is, when you're choosing your vendors, doing your research, doing your homework, having communications, checking off how their communication is. And even when you were talking about, your fun story in Paris, like I think there's a lot to also be said about professionals who care enough to be a part of, I'm not saying you have to be a part of like the brunch or I was going to say the drunk brunches, the drunk lunches.
Brunch or lunch.
You know what I'm talking about. But I'm just saying more like industry events that are continuing to keep you inspired. One last question I want to ask you is, in the creative world where you're constantly seeing things and you're seeing like industry giants and like really cool stuff, right? Everybody has some awesome ideas. How do you keep it fresh? Like, how do you keep your creative brain going? Like, what's inspiring for you to just kind of like keep the creative juices flowing?
Recently I'd kind of felt like there's no staleness, right? There's so much out there more than ever. But what I've started trying to do is like, even if it has nothing to do with what I'm currently working on, I'll look up like in cool events in Singapore or cool events in Chile, you know, something like that, just to like see a different culture, see how they approach the guest experience. I mean, even within America, like a Southern wedding is so different from a Northern wedding. Just to kind of get like a little bit different, because at the end of the day, nothing any of us do is new. It's nothing somebody else hasn't done before. We're just learning from past experiences. And so I can't change a color palette. If a couple is wanting a beautiful ivory wedding, it's a beautiful ivory wedding.
Right.
What I can change up is the actual in-person experience. What I can change up is like, you know, a little bit of the floral design or the non-floral design, things like that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that like I would tell every couple that is discussing their celebration is like, the things that are hard, you're only going to regret putting them off. You know, like you're always going to find beautiful inspiration pictures. You're always going to like the fun stuff. Some people tend to delay it, but really like if selecting music you know is going to be a problem, you need to address it earlier, because otherwise
just start it earlier.
yes, otherwise you're at the end and you're dancing to All of Me and you're cutting the cake to How Sweet It Is. Like you're gonna, you know, like that's what's
That's the
happen.
template, by the way. If you ask for suggestions, that's they're locked and loaded.
John Legend can't defend.
It's so interesting you said, like, you know, we don't really create anything new, because recently I know like one of the big celebrity weddings that happened this year was Sophia Richie. And I looked at her wedding and I thought it was just so beautiful. It was very timeless. It was very classic. There wasn't anything, and, you know, of course I'm sure that it was, you know, of small fortune, but there wasn't anything that was just so out of the box. And I feel like a lot of couples, and I do want to stress this, you don't have to create something that's like, oh my God, it's got to be completely different from what anybody's, because what makes it different is the people that are there, the entertainment that you bring in, you know, what's your program like? What are you serving on the menu? What's the atmosphere look like? And I mean that also just coming
and
from
what
design.
picture are you going to put on your wall for the rest of time?
Right.
Is it going to be the flowers on your aisle,
Right.
or is it you like, you know, jumping on the back of your best friend and like riding around on the dance floor?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a very specific example. I don't know if somebody has that picture. I hope you do.
But yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's really what creates the moment. So, I mean, even for couples who are, you know, working on a budget or not working on a budget, I mean, I really think that's what it's about, because you can create a beautiful platform, but I'm totally with you. It's not like anything. I shouldn't say that. There are some times where I see events and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's totally different. And I love that we push the envelope. But I think specifically for, I guess maybe that's a question, specifically for weddings, do you push the envelope as much as your corporate work? Probably not. I mean, I don't know.
it depends
Although I
it
did see
depends
some of
on
your
the couple.
portfolio and I was like, wow, I was like, this couple was like
No,
really
no,
cool.
just reel it in. No, I'm kidding. No, I do. And the other thing I was going to say is like, if you're a person that's looking for inspiration, try to go outside of your aesthetic too, because like I'm kind of a maximalist. I don't want to shock anyone, but I learned so much from people that design in minimalism. And I think that that's also a very good lesson for somebody that's trying to make a tighter budget work, is like look at the symmetry of minimalism, look at the textures they've chosen, look at the colors they've chosen, look at the lighting. Lighting is so huge. Even if you're not bringing in an outside lighting vendor, the space itself, you can probably manipulate the lighting a little bit.
Right.
I am going to come back to your question, but the thing I was trying to say is about doing hard things. Like I see so many people like almost ruin their experience by like waiting until the night before to be like, where are we going on our honeymoon? You know what I mean? And they've like already taken the time off from work. Their bag is already packed. They just don't know where they're going.
Right.
Or, you know, like it's just as important. Like how you're landing after this wedding is just as important. It matters from a financial perspective. It matters where you're going to live. Like I've worked with professional hockey players that got traded 3 weeks before their wedding.
Right.
You know, like, also, fun fact, Ben Bishop knocked out his teeth the night before his engagement session. We had to move that thing. I was like, this is really cool. I'm a huge hockey fan. And I'm like texting his photographer and I'm like, what are your dates like in like a month and a half?
We like
hopefully?"
postpone this.
He's like, oh God, why? And I was like, are you watching the Lightning game? He's like, no. I'm like, Ben's teeth are
You
on
like
the
to go
ice."
to Lightning games.
I do.
Were you there? Could
I
you
wasn't.
imagine?
It was an away game.
Talk about a freaking badge of honor. You would have been like, I'm here. The planner's here.
It was really unfortunate too, because as we were planning his wedding, his contract was up with the Lightning, and so the bride was like trying to plan his groom's cake, and she's like, "Okay, well, I guess it's not going to be a Lightning hockey puck."
Right.
And then he went to the Kings, and she's like, "Okay, I guess we're doing a Kings hockey puck," and I'm like, "Oh no, we can't do all black icing. Everybody's gonna
Right.
have." Well, then he got traded to the Stars, like right before
Oh,
the
man.
wedding, and I was like, "We also can't do green icing. Can we make it white with touches of green?" Anyway. But that was a very fun problem to have. It was like
Right.
getting live updates on my groom from the NHL app was
That is so
really
cool.
out of body.
That's so cool. That is out of body
Yeah.
for sure.
But there's a very humanizing aspect of working with somebody on an event.
Right.
Like I have colleagues that work with like Jeff Bezos and like
Yeah.
stuff like that, and they're like, at the end of the day, he's a person that you know,
Right.
whatever, has these
Right.
like weird idiosyncrasies.
Easy for you to say.
But then I walk into a hockey game and I'm a lunatic. And then I like reel it back in, and
Yeah.
I'm very polite and professional, and
They're just like us.
they're just like us. They really genuinely are, specifically hockey players. They're
Yeah.
pretty freaking down to earth.
Pretty down to
I
earth
love it.
babes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting hit all day and like
Yeah.
slammed up against the. I mean, I went one time, and I will say, just like a small little, any time that I've ever gone to a sporting event, this is true story. I've been fortunate enough that it's always been like a friend who like scored a box seat, or like we were like front row or something like that. Like, so I've never actually gone to like any sporting event where I like sat in the like regular section.
With the common folks.
So I've kind of like become sort of bratty about attending sporting events where I'm like, well, where are we sitting? Like, are we
No, I'm
sitting
kind
up
of like that.
front?
I
Or,
get like seat FOMO.
like where do you sit when you go to the hockey games? Do you have like
my seats?
box seats now?
I have half season tickets.
You're really committed.
They're about 6 or 7 rows up from the penalty box, so I can see both benches, and I'm just about center ice.
This is where you can find her, by the way, if you're.
Yes, it's section 116. And everyone around
looking
me is
for her.
awesome. We've developed a pretty good system for high-fiving. We just haven't all figured out who's going to high-five who first. And it tends to be very awkward, and there's some whiffs, but the intention is there.
See, I'm a Virgo. I will like, well, I'll make that happen.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Just take me. And
We
I
need
will
a
make
little
it
bit of
happen.
organization.
Yes. I'm very aggressive. I will make it happen.
I mean, the couple next to me, I called it that they were going to get married, Jenny and Ryan. I just saw them at the John Mayer concert, too. And I was like, you guys are going to get married. She was like, absolutely not. This is our first date. Like, calm down. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So then when she was getting married, she was like, yeah, he proposed last night. I was like, yeah, we all knew.
Right.
Anyway, it's like, it's a community.
It totally is.
Like, we were talking about this from, like, working with celebrities. There's something, like, obviously working with if the couple themselves are celebrities, that's one thing. And it's another when, like, their guests are celebrities and they're regular people.
Right.
That kind of pressure, I couldn't do it.
Right.
Like,
That
I
would be
can't have
tough.
famous friends.
Because, like, how do you deal with, like, I'm sure that they have their own security. I mean, we've definitely flown in, like, some fun, like, acts before, and the writers are a whole different, like, that's a whole episode.
Yeah.
It's just talking
It's true.
writers. Like, all
It's
that
true.
they
And I'm
need.
not talking about influencers. No,
Oh, no, like,
disrespect to
actual
influencers.
celebrities, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I need chicken wings and fish
Yeah.
at approximately 9
Exactly.
p.m.
Like, I've never had Bono at a wedding, but if I knew Bono was coming to attend the wedding, I would
Oh,
be
yeah, I don't know that I would.
hermit of myself.
Yeah.
Like, I would be on.
We know now, since your hockey experience, like, it would just elevate it to a whole new level. You wouldn't be able to talk.
You know, both a blessing and a curse. The day of Ben's wedding, Victor Hedman got married in Sweden, and because Ben had been traded, like the team had to choose, and the majority went to Victor's wedding in Sweden, but John Cooper and Braden Coburn did come to Ben's wedding. And thank God, because if it had been a room of all of them, I mean, I've worked with the whole team.
Oh,
Before.
yeah.
I've been in rooms where they're all
It would
there.
have been
At
overloaded.
the Ryan Callahan Foundation fundraiser every year, like Stamkos, a bunch of them all come. I am normal around them, I promise.
Having a hard time believing you.
They're gonna have to tell you for
Right.
themselves.
Right.
But the point in all of this is there's just this other pressure of like these people have seen so much, and like I cannot be the person that they like Instagram story about, like, oh my god, I had the
What was
coldest steak of
this?
my life tonight, and like
That's so interesting. I guess I would have never thought about that extra layer of pressure depending on sort of your audience in a way.
well, how many times somebody who's worked in like the political atmosphere too, like you plan this beautiful timeline and then a security team is like, absolutely not. That is the time that we have to sweep this thing.
Right.
And then nobody can be in it unless we are in it. And
I would think I would have a meltdown. Like that would definitely be the time that I would go home and just ceremonially I would print the timeline. You give it the respect it deserves before setting it on
for a
fire.
moment, let it go. Yeah.
For setting it on fire. But no, that's so funny. Oh my god.
But reeling it in for a newly engaged couple, because that's what we're talking about, Brittany.
Yes,
Stop talking
sorry.
about hockey.
Sorry, yes.
I do think that people that kind of start to lose their way in the planning process kind of also kind of lose sight of lose sight of who their people are, right? Like, are you planning this for them? Are you planning this for yourself? I had a couple recently that they had a very specific conversation with each other of like, this is for us. What we eat, what we do, it's for us. It's not for anybody else in the room. So like, let's make this experience what we would want it to
Oh, I
be, and
love
like take
that.
people on the ride with us.
Yeah.
And it was great because they're a couple that host a lot. So they're already pretty dialed in.
Sure.
And they could be like, hey, this person's going to need this kind of wine. This person
Right.
doesn't drink wine. This, they were very specific, and it was
Right.
awesome. But I think that's like, as I was thinking about what I hear most from both friends, from clients, from human beings I know getting married, the stress is, it tends to be external. You know, it's not a conversation. Like, not many people sit down and have a real conversation with their partner and say like, okay, I would much rather have a once in a lifetime celebration and have the things that we want and have these memories for a lifetime.
Right.
How do you feel? And their partner may look back at them and say like, yes, but if our parents are contributing XYZ, we should also set aside a nest egg, like,
Or get there, or are you cueing them into some of the decision making process, which also becomes,
Right.
fun to have more cooks in the kitchen.
and so many more couples are paying for their own wedding.
Right.
So it's almost like endless in those situations, because
Yeah.
it's not like somebody saying, hey, this is the dollar amount that you were allowed to
Right.
spend. It's like, well, we can put some stuff on credit cards, and we can,
Right.
like, it's been a while since I've gotten the sense that somebody was going into any form of debt
Right.
for a wedding.
Right.
But at the start of my career, I experienced
I
that.
did too. And I think it's one of those things where it's
still think
so
about
like
those
I would
people.
never recommend, and that's why I have like this whole episode dedicated to budgeting and like making sure that you start there, because there's going to be so many like, oh, I want that, and that's going to happen in every category of hire. It doesn't matter if it's design or catering or the bar or whatever it is. And so I'm totally with you. I don't think none of us condone. Don't go over or stretch yourself, because like we were saying before, I mean, you can have a very timeless classic look and still create this amazing atmosphere and effect overall with the guest.
And aside from the financial repercussions, like, there's always going to be this black cloud over it. And then in retrospect, as you think about things, you're going to be thinking of it in terms of like, was this worth it? Was it not worth it? And like, live your life so you don't have regrets.
Right.
It sounds easy.
Right.
I'm the worst about it, but
Yeah.
if
No,
you-
I totally
you know.
agree. I totally agree.
And like, even from, I've talked to different event professionals about how they try to address that with couples, and everything from high end to low end. And when I say low end, I mean like less of a budget per person. I don't
Sure.
mean to say that anybody is low end.
Sure.
And Brooke Keegan, who's an incredible planner out of California, when a client signs her, before they do anything, she essentially pre-plans their wedding.
Yeah.
And she pulls numbers from every vendor that she expects to work with, etc. And she essentially
Yeah, you
hands
have
the
to.
client the
You have to.
budget, and she
Yeah.
says like, no matter what the pretty looks like, here are the numbers. Do you sign off on it? Do you not? And there's a way to do that in any budget bracket.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then at
Absolutely.
the very least, then from there, because you've done the hard work in advance, you're just making emotional decisions from
Right.
then.
Right.
If these 3 photographers are all within budget range, all I have to do is figure out who I want to work with.
Yeah.
You know? And then the same thing, like if you're looking at a floral team and you're like, the numbers are there, but there's nothing of their work that resonates with me, go see. Like
Right.
a lot more companies are putting in place minimums, but like the ones that are not, have the conversation with them.
Right. And depending on when the event is taking place, or, I know that, everywhere has its own peak season. I know Florida, it's a little bit different than it might be, I don't know, if you're hosting an event in Chicago. So ultimately, I totally agree with that, because I think it's just, don't just go with someone because it makes sense financially, because it's the same thing for, I think, us as professionals. I know that I don't always go with the client just because they agree to my fee. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we have to work together for a year. We want to make sure it's the right fit, and we want to make sure that you have the best experience too. But Noor, I'm gonna ask you one more question.
Okay.
I'm gonna end, unless you were adding.
Oh, I mean,
something
I
else.
could do this
Okay.
for days. So you reel me in when you need to.
So I'm gonna start ending each episode by saying, it's in the South, we say, you don't know what you don't know. What is like one piece of advice that you would give couples to just like take with them on their planning or their design or planning journey?
I can only give one.
I should have emailed this to you in advance. I'm just kidding.
I still would feel this
keep
way.
it flowing here.
I still would feel this way, honestly.
Yeah.
Mostly because design is so important to me. I have to go back to remembering your priorities. Like if I were getting married tomorrow, if I was planning my wedding celebration tomorrow, I know there's a certain feeling that I want to emote that I want to create for all of my loved ones. And that's what it would be about. And then the flowers, the lighting, the fabrics, it's all a byproduct of that feeling. And I think if you can put your finger on that, that's like, A is superpower, but it will also like really help guide things, because when you're employing event vendors, they're going to be hopefully be trying to give you like your best option. So for instance, like I'm always going to keep your budget in mind, but I'm going to give you a couple of reach items, right? Like you can always say like, I really like this concept, and I mean this for couples. You can say this to your vendors. I really like this concept. This doesn't resonate with me so much. Let's pack the punch over here. I really like this concept. And I love when clients say that, because I can't guess every one of your feelings. I may think I'm giving you something that you want, but you could be like, oh no, cousin, I really can't stand, use that thing and do not show it to me again. I wouldn't know otherwise.
Right.
But to jump back over to it, the having the priority and having your finger on the pulse, and like when you and your partner get stressed through the process, like go back to that and say like, we wrote down on this napkin that this was the goal of our celebration. Let's get back to it. And you can go realign everybody.
I love that. That's actually such incredible advice. And it really, I think, can resonate to any aspect of the planning process.
Do you feel, I feel this way, and I'm looking for validation from you, Brittany.
Sure.
That both people are very involved in the celebration planning. When we first started in our careers, I feel like it was pretty one-sided. It was a parent, or in straight couples, it was the bride that was doing all of the planning.
Yeah.
And now it feels a lot more collaborative.
It feels a lot more collaborative. And it's so funny because I don't know if it was always like the groom was in the room and it was like awkwardly like he's in the background and the bride's just like, I'm on speaker.
Right.
But he like never chimed in. So maybe he was always there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But now that I'm
assume he wasn't.
Right. Let's just assume he's not. But all the meetings I'm doing, even inquiring clients, even consultations, the groom is always there. And I love that. I think that's so great because it really does show sort of not like a united front. I mean, obviously you're getting married. I hope that you're a united front, but that you're both involved in the process of creating that experience. And I think that's really, really cool.
Really
I love
is.
that.
Yeah.
Because I know like, and not like dogging on anyone, but like when it was back when I was getting married, it was like the groom usually would chime in on like the food, the booze,
Maybe the music.
and the entertainment.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, and then peace out for the rest of it.
That can backfire. Like, I remember one of my first weddings that I fully designed myself. The bride wanted this beautiful classic wedding, and she was like, and as a gift to my groom, he gets to select the band, and my parents are going to pay for it. And the groom, swear to God, it was at the Vinoy in the grand ballroom. He selected an 80s and 90s hair metal band cover
No. Why?
cover band.
Oh, just because that was his vibe, I guess. I'm just saying no.
And this, like, I mean, the bride she looked like Cinderella in real life. Like,
Yeah.
she even kind of had the like
Yeah.
swooped over blonde hair in the bun with the headband
Wow.
and the
Yeah.
the princess ball gown
Yeah.
and everything. And this band, they ruined my design. But I mean, the music was great, but their name was like, it wasn't Bottle Rocket, but that's what's coming to my mind right now. And it said it on all of their equipment and all of these things. And I kind of loved it, but then they turned on one of those, like, I call them like the Kmart specials, like the green and red, like laser dot things. And this bride's
no. I
gorgeous
can't. I
ivory
can't.
wedding, there was like, it looked like everybody was about to get hit with a laser.
If you were going to do lighting at your event, you cannot do anything that looks like it belongs at like a kid's birthday party or like a middle school dance like 20 years ago.
If your stoner cousin has used it to set a vibe while hotboxing their room, don't bring it to your wedding. It's just not, like, unless that's the vibe you're going for, don't let your band bring it.
Please don't. Well, thank you,
That was
Noor.
one of my funny stories. It was
Wait, what?
hotboxing at a wedding.
No, we're not telling that one.
What happened?
No, I'm not. I'm not just kidding.
This couple met at Coachella. I'm telling you a story.
Tell me.
They met at Coachella. I did not design this wedding. My boss at the time did. And she designed this beautiful dance lounge area with teepees. Sorry to the indigenous peoples of America, but that's what happened.
Okay.
And I get the best radio call of my life. Noor, the groomsmen are hotboxing the teepee again.
What do you say?
And I was like, pissed.
Do you like? Did you like open up the flap and you're like, "Hey guys"?
Yes. Okay, so here's the other thing I want to say is
The
I
worst
am
is the
not a
group type.
narc, contrary to what every groomsman called me, but I am very fine with it. There's a sheriff that walks around that venue because it is city owned, and I was
Oh
trying
my
to
gosh,
not
she's-
get anyone arrested at that wedding
The cops.
because this was years ago.
Oh, okay.
Florida's
This
a
was
little
really
bit
modern.
better
Sure, okay.
about marijuana laws
Little
now,
bit
but at the time, no go.
Not so much, yeah.
So when I came over and I opened the flaps to this teepee, the groom is in the middle of this like powwow, and he just looks at me and he's like, and I was like, "What did I say to you?" And he's like, "I'm sorry, they made me." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." There's literal smoke coming out the top of this teepee. How cool do you guys think you are? And as he's getting out, I was like, "I want you to live your life. I don't care." Like a literal sheriff right there,
I'm just
bro.
looking out for you. See, again, back to choosing the right people
Like,
for you.
at least be
that
cool
got your
about
back.
it. Don't hotbox it in front of a sheriff. And I will never forget the next day we went to take the gifts to the house, and one of the brothers-in-law was a groomsman. And when I opened the door, he goes, "Oh, the narc is here." I was like, so unfair. That's so.
I am cool. And it's so funny because I feel like, yeah, you get that rep. Like that I'm not cool. Or like people wouldn't want to hang out with me. I'm like, I really am cool.
Yeah,
I just have to be, drill sergeant with you for the next
This isn't
72
written in our
hours.
contract, but I'm gonna go the extra mile and make sure you don't get arrested on your wedding day. Okay, that's just
There's invisible
on the house.
There's invisible badges, Noor, that you've been given. They're there, but
There'll never be another better radio call. Nor groomsman's hotbox the TV again.
that is literally
Again? What do you mean again?
No, we've had some too. Actually, I won't tell mine. We'll stop there. We'll stop while we're ahead. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you, and we hope that you've gained some insight and support to help you on your planning journey. Bye.